Today, the world is full of misinformation. News stories on the surface may seem real, but under closer scrutiny are fake. Corruption and fraud are everywhere. There's a better political news and information website, backstreetgossip.com, where you'll find the latest stories and information that's circling the media world. You'll see stories of the day and stories that will be discussed tomorrow. Backstreetgossip.com will provide you with informative content that any reader would be amazed to gossip about. Backstreetgossip.com, providing information from Earth and beyond.
The Culloden Law Group is famous for debt collection, but the attorneys there do a lot more. At Culloden, you're going to find attorneys who have built a solid reputation in the government relations sector, and can provide you with a wide variety of legal options and strategies. Their experience in negotiations and settlements can assure you of their confidence in settling your case. The attorneys at the Culloden Law Group can work autonomously or as a team to take your case where it has to go to get the job done. With a measured approach and high levels of integrity and professionalism, they will work with you to bring about a settlement that's optimal and are here to serve. Call the Culloden Law Group today and put that stress behind you. The Culloden Law Group can be reached at 602-730-8385. That's Culloden Law Group, at 602-730-8385. Thank you.
I'm Senator Sonny Borelli, and when I come to Phoenix, I always want to be informed, so I tune into Hub Radio Phoenix. You want to be informed? I suggest you do the same. Make sure you tune in.
Are you tired of the long lines and impersonal service you get at the post office? Well, we have a solution for you. Pack Mail is an all-in-one mail center conveniently located in the Fry Shopping Center at 3218 East Bell Road, right here in Phoenix. Owned and operated by Arizona residents Mark and Vicky Battaglia, you can be sure of getting personalized professional service. They will pack, crate, freight, and ship your items anywhere in the world. They work with all the major carriers like DHL, UPS, USPS, and Federal Express. Need an address for your home business or startup company? They have P.O. boxes on site where you can receive and pick up your mail anytime, and their knowledgeable and courteous staff will find a way to ship that awkward or heavy item. You can even have your packages picked up and delivered for a small fee. Their motto is, if you can imagine it, we can ship it. Drop in on the good folks at Pack Mail and let them do the work for you. Pack Mail can be reached at 602-971-2300 or email at info@weshipphoenix.com. That's Pack Mail, 602-971-2300 or info@weshipphoenix.com.
Welcome to Fighting Back. Current events, news talk, and political commentary. Now here's your host, Ron Ludders.
Thank you for the applause. You're going to have to cut it short tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Please stop applauding. Thank you. We've got a lot to talk about, and so we don't want you to applaud at everything we say. We appreciate it, but please let us get the show moving because there's so much going on. This is Fighting Back on Hub Radio, and we have a lot to talk about tonight because there's so much going on in the nation and in the world and locally as well. And so what we have to do right now is I have to tell you my good buddy here has been moved to the other side. He's been promoted, and that's
More
Ray Michaels.
chairs, huh?
Hello, everyone. You know, I feel out of sorts here. I'm used to seeing you to my left and not my right.
I know he's moved to the left. That's
We
unusual.
keep moving back and forth.
And then we have our original bald-headed badass, as he calls himself.
America's favorite bald badass.
Yeah, America's favorite. And that's Josh Bernstein. Welcome to the show, Josh. And
Thank
tonight
you.
we have a lovely blonde lady here, and that's Marney Thompson. And believe it or not, she graduated from Berkeley. The last conservative, besides, there's one other one that got out of there. You know who that is? Greg Gutfeld.
Also, Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers went there?
Yes, he was a quarterback there for 3 years.
And he has to be a good one because he's right-handed, right? He's got to be a conservative.
He's really conservative.
So tonight
He wants to run Jeopardy, I think, instead of the Packers. But
I know a lot of controversy going on right now. But we got a lot of things going on. And some things here that's, I don't know if it's breaking news, but a lot of you probably don't know this. So I'm going to ask Mr. Bernstein to tell us a little bit about what's going on in Washington, D.C.
Well, it's interesting that for many, many months, we were never allowed to speak the name of the killer of Ashley Babbitt. And it turns out now that we can do that because, unfortunately, he's been exonerated by an illegitimate government. But he's actually going to speak to everybody now. He's coming out, and he's going to be speaking on Thursday night on Lester Holt on NBC.
On what?
On Lester Holt's program.
Don't swear on this show. This is a family show.
So, I want to know if he's going to ask the right questions. My guess is that Lester Holt is going to somehow make him to be the victim instead of the true victim, which was the one that was executed by Michael Leroy Bird, and that is Ashley Babbitt. Are we going to see some fake crocodile tears, perhaps? I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. But this is what a real journalist, an investigative journalist, does. He comes up with real questions that need to be asked and answered. Number one, why did you leave a loaded handgun in a Capitol restroom back in 2019 and not get disciplined for it? Number two, why did you break every single solitary rule of gun safety and protocol on January 6th when you discharged your weapon in a manner in which you should have never done and shot somebody that was unarmed? That would be the other question. Number three, why did you shoot an unarmed woman in the neck through a broken window in through the glass door, and then someone that posed zero threat to you and was not armed? Okay? These are just some of the questions that need to be asked and answered. Number four, why is it that when a law enforcement officer shoots somebody, whether they're armed or disarmed, in the United States of America, and whether that officer is black or white, but especially white, their name is released to the press almost immediately? However, your name somehow has not been released for well over 6 months. Do you feel as though there's some type of privilege there? Number five, why was there a concerted effort to hide your identity for all of these months after you shot and killed Ashley Babbitt? Number six, do you think because you are a black law enforcement officer who shot and killed a white unarmed woman that it didn't fit the media's persona and agenda of being a victim? So in other words, a white person who's shot by someone who's black, well, obviously that can't be seen as a victim in today's 2021 media.
Doesn't make the news.
Right, exactly. It doesn't even make the news. Number seven, your lawyer, who you hired on Joe Biden's personal recommendation, Mark Shamel, who is a partner at Lowenstein and Sandler, gave $75,000 to the Biden campaign. Do you feel that that is a conflict of interest or yet another quid pro Joe? Through a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act request, from Judicial Watch, it was recently announced that they received 1,160 pages of documents from the Washington, D.C.'s Chief Medical Examiner's Office. And in it, we have now found out that there was an immediate request to cremate Ashley Babbitt's body no less than 48 hours after you shot her. Additionally, why were Ashley Babbitt's fingerprints emailed to a Biden administration official that so far has remained unnamed? What was the big rush to cremate Ashley Babbitt's body? What was the D.C. medical examiner trying to hide? And why were her fingerprints emailed to a Biden government official, and to whom? Number 9, why now, after your sham investigation led to your false exoneration, have you decided to identify yourself and come out and speak publicly? And do you have any plans to make any money on any future book deals, exclusive interviews, or perhaps any speaking engagements on behalf of what happened and when you shot Ashley Babbitt? And number 10, and lastly, have you had the common courtesy and at least decency to reach out to any member of Ashley Babbitt's family and at least apologize for murdering Ashley Babbitt? These are the questions that Lester Holt needs to ask on Thursday night, but I have a feeling he might not.
You know, I remember seeing that situation, and I saw it from a camera angle that was behind Ashley Babbitt, and it would appear that there were a lot of people in that hallway, including 2 officers that were standing directly behind her. So she was no threat, certainly, but to indiscriminately shoot into a crowd, I mean, even a child is taught not to even play with his little Nerf ball guns and that and aim them at anybody. This is appalling, especially now that we've seen. I'm not sure who made the decision that this man should not be charged, but
I think it's pretty simple. Biden takes over the Department of Injustice. He puts in Merrick Garland, and Merrick Garland is obviously a lackey for him. And they decided at that point to cover this whole thing up. And then Biden even personally recommended the attorney and law firm to represent Michael Leroy Byrd, because that attorney and that law firm gave him $75,000 to his campaign. So yet another quid pro Joe.
The other thing that is troubling, we've seen cities burn when a police officer has shot a black person. And I don't want to get racial here because this isn't a racial issue. Mm-hmm. But it is rather strange that when this man was identified, he was shuffled away and kept sequestered so nobody knew who he was or whether he... And the race shouldn't have mattered. He did the wrong thing. White or black, he should not have...
Exactly.
And he should be punished for what he did.
He should be, and now, unfortunately, because he's been falsely exonerated, the family, the only recourse they have at this point is through civil litigation, and yes, that is ongoing. And one other thing that I want to touch on is folks need to go to givesendgo.com/justice for FOR Ashley. So it's givesendgo.com/justice for Ashley. That is a fund that has been set up by her attorneys in which you can donate to make sure that that her life means something to millions of people, will never be forgotten. And also, if you really want to upset the leftist liberals out there, go to AmericanPatriotsApparel.com, go down to the Josh Bernstein Uncensored collection, and go ahead and get yourself a Who Shot Ashley Babbitt t-shirt that we are selling that has Michael Leroy Byrd on it, or my newest one, January 6th was an inside job.
Wow. So Josh, from JoshBernsteinUncensored.com, and check that out as well. So, I mean, people who like to carry firearms, right? You need to go through training, right? Mm-hmm. You need to understand it. Now, to discharge a weapon at somebody, you have to show that there's imminent threat to you. But it doesn't seem like she was an imminent threat to him. And Ron, to your point, there's a lot of people there. I mean, he would have had to been an excellent shot,
which he was not,
to randomly hit somebody in the neck. I mean, these things aren't making any sense. And when you talk about the FBI doing a full investigation, some of these things should have come up because this is common knowledge for people who like to use weapons. I mean, unless there was an imminent threat, I mean, if somebody comes into your house and you defend yourself, mm-hmm. and they were just standing there and they kicked down the door, you're going to be arrested right away. You're going to be taken down and they're going to do some investigation. You have to show that you felt in fear for your life to have self-defense.
Well, that's what he's going to do to Lester Holt. He's going to sit there and lie. I'm sure they're going to be coaching him on how to squeeze out some crocodile tears. And they're going to try to change the narrative. And they're going to try to make him the victim rather than the person who has lost their life, which again is Ashley Babbitt,
Okay,
a
so-
14-year veteran.
So
in
preface this whole thing. All right, give us where she came in, who she was surrounded by, where he was when the gun came out and was discharged.
Well, he was obviously behind the door.
so he
and
was behind a door. Now
He was behind a door.
Are we talking like he came around and
Well,
got
no,
in front of the door?
It's amazing actually that he didn't shoot somebody directly in front of him, because he wasn't holding the gun like you should. He was holding it down like a thug, like a gangster.
Like a kill
basically.
shot.
Yes, exactly. And obviously, when he drew his weapon and shot through the broken glass in the door, he was just shooting. He didn't know who he was going to hit. And there was nobody on the other side of that door that either A, deserved to be shot and killed, number one, but number two, was an imminent threat. Nobody was armed. Nobody was coming after anybody. So he just indiscriminately shot.
So he could
and
have
killed
gotten
her.
he could have gotten one of the officers.
He could have shot,
Yes,
I would assume,
there were
just
two
about
officers
anybody.
right behind her.
That's correct.
And she was
His gun could have gone off, and he could have shot one of the other Capitol Police officers that were in front of him, or a member of Congress.
Now this is the same one that you mentioned earlier that left a loaded
Left
handgun.
a loaded handgun.
Okay,
in
give
the
us a
Capitol
little bit
restroom.
more. Give us a little bit more detail on that, so that our audience can understand that this is just not a one of.
No,
this has
no.
happened before.
In 2019, this exact same Capitol Police officer was in the Capitol restroom, and he had his gun out, and I'm assuming he put his gun down to use the restroom, whatever, but he was careless enough to have left it there. And then the gun was found by another person and was reported. Well, obviously the guns are given, to these officers, so it's very easy to track whose gun it was. And when that happened, he wasn't disciplined. There was really barely any investigation at all. And, it was like, okay, no big deal. You made a mistake, and that was the end of it. Meanwhile, what if I don't know if it's even possible if a child could have walked into the bathroom. Maybe they were doing a tour. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah.
But somebody could have walked in and said, oh, look, boom. And the gun could have gone off and could have shot somebody. So, and this happened in 2019. And we know it's the same person because the attorneys for Ashley Babbitt were on Tucker Carlson many months ago. And instead of giving the name, they said, is this the same person that left the gun in 2019? To which the attorney said, yes, it is.
Ron, the great responsibility when you want to carry a firearm. It's great response. And no matter where it is, if you set it down, you are still responsible for it. But you would never, if you're going to be washing your hands, you want to have it on your person.
Yeah.
You don't want to set it down. Anybody
Right.
can grab it. Anybody. There's no
It's not
excuse. making any sense.
There's and this, I don't want to go into all of the things here because there's regular classes, as you know, and everybody, I would encourage everybody to take a class
Yeah,
on how to handle
absolutely.
a firearm because, nobody ever wants to use these things, but if you have to, you want to make sure that you're the one that comes out
Yeah, of course.
with
Ahead.
unscathed and without 30 years
Well, the
in
best
jail
gun-
for misuse
The
of
best gunfight is where nobody fires a shot.
Right.
That is the best gunfight.
So one of the things, it's even against the law to brandish a firearm. Now,
Oh,
what does
yeah.
brandish means? Means I take that out
Threat.
and I could lay it on the table and say, gentlemen, let's talk. And that's right there. I'm the one that controls that, and I control the discussion, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Josh, who did the investigation?
Apparently, the Capitol Police, the head of the Capitol
Investigated
Police.
their own
Yeah,
officers.
exactly.
That's,
Kind of like Eric Holder in investigating Fast and Furious when he was part of it. The same thing. So it was a bogus investigation. Obviously, they didn't even do any investigation into Ashley Babbitt's murder because if they really did a true investigation, they would have found this officer to have been at fault at a very minimum, manslaughter, or unnecessary. What's the word? Not unnecessary, but what do they call that?
Involuntary.
Involuntary. Yeah. I mean, at the very minimum, I think he's a cold stone killer myself. But they didn't do anything. They didn't do any investigation.
Have they reprimanded him at all
No.
for pulling out and discharging a firearm into a crowd?
They have not.
Because that is Marney, you know this. I mean, that is.
They have
Completely,
not.
He was completely cleared. of all
Complete-
charges.
And
Wow.
once again, this woman posed no threat. There were police officers behind her,
And she was unarmed.
and she was unarmed, and there were police. You need to speak directly into that, please. And there were police officers there, and she was unarmed. I mean, they could have stopped her. I mean, the big guys, they weren't.
Well, hey,
little
when the
fellas.
Capitol Police were waving people in, come on in, guys, come on in, and the fact that the FBI was completely part of this entire thing, which is why I'm selling shirts that say January 6th was an inside job. Let's not forget Antifa and BLM and all the agitators that were part of this as well. This was not peaceful patriots causing havoc and problems, okay? This was FBI informants. This was the Capitol Police. This was Antifa. This was BLM.
Well, Marney, I know you weren't there, but of course we all kind of watched in horror of what was going on there. What started out as a peaceful demonstration with, I might add, the President of the United States at that time, Donald Trump, said to exercise your First Amendment
And
rights, which
peacefully.
are peacefully
He
go.
used the word peacefully.
Yes.
Yes, he did.
Yep.
And so tell us what that means to the general public that's watching. What peacefully demonstrate to the Congress your grievances.
That you are allowed to go and demonstrate with signs, and you can call out, you can say things, you can say, what you feel. That's a peaceful demonstration. And later to have found out that actually, as you mentioned, the Capitol Police were bringing people inside the building, and those pictures later showed that Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and Black Watch, those people who had been arrested previously and had records, were part of that group. So it wasn't just a peaceful, the whole group wasn't pro-Trump, and it was...
It appears, from what I've read this past week, that most everybody was exonerated. There was no plan, at least on the part of the Trump people that were there for the rally.
Right.
There
That's
was absolutely no
No, the
plan.
FBI actually just admitted this week
Yes,
that there was no right-wing conspiracy to cause any type of violence. They've already admitted that.
Yep.
So if it's not on the right, process of elimination tells us it's on the left.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
And you know what's so worrisome is that Nancy Pelosi, who is the Speaker of the House, and she is in charge of the Capitol Police, that she wants to put satellite offices now in the states with these Capitol Police. Now, if they're going to be investigating themselves, this seems like it would be a free-for-all, doesn't it?
Yes, and it's the Capitol Police, not each individual state.
Right.
It's not a state police.
First of all, they have
Right.
no jurisdiction in any
Zero.
state.
Every
Other
single
than the
dictator
District
in
of
history
Columbia.
has had a personal security police regime, basically. You look at Pol Pot, you look at Idi Amin, you look at the Nazis, you look at the Bolsheviks. I mean, all of them have had their own secret police, okay? And if you were to be a dictator in the United States of America, who would you use? Would you use the FBI, the CIA, the Department of Homeland Security? No, you would use the Capitol Police. Why? Well, number one, because they're not anyone that has to deal with FOIA requests. So in other words, they can't be put up for a FOIA request. They don't need to be micromanaged, if you will, through investigations and Inspector General reports. And so they are the perfect branch, if you will. They're controlled by Congress. They're the perfect branch to become the new secret police. People need to understand that. I don't believe in defunding any police departments in the United States of America, but I believe in defunding the Capitol Police, especially if they're going to go outside of the Capitol to other states.
And let's ask the question: who controls the Capitol Police?
Congress.
The Speaker of the House.
The Speaker of the House,
Yeah.
who
Who
is
is, so honest, right?
Yep.
Nancy
And they
Pelosi.
serve
She
her.
never lies.
Pelosi.
Yes.
They serve her.
Yeah.
So Nancy, when are you going to release the 14,000 hours of tape from January 6th, huh? That's what I want to know.
Now, would you encourage the governors in all the states to just say, no, we're not going to allow you to come into our state and set
Absolute.
up? Yeah,
Yeah,
set
I
up
don't
house?
understand
Yes.
why the Republicans aren't passing legislation banning the Capitol Police from being anywhere
Yeah.
outside the jurisdiction of Washington, D.C.
That's
Hello?
all they do.
Where
yeah.
are you?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
That's all they do.
This is a travesty. I want to talk about the next travesty. We have a president that is mentally deficient, and he is in charge of the United States military withdrawal out of
Talibanistan.
Talibanistan. The
Talibanistan,
Taliban
we're calling it.
in Afghanistan, short Talibanistan.
Well,
Thank
that's
you.
what it is now. I mean, they run the country, so why not give it its real name?
You know, Ray, I just never cease to marvel at Mr. Bernstein's ability to come up with keywords. I like that.
Yeah. It's
common
Talibanistan.
sense, I mean.
At any rate, we've seen this happen. We've seen people that are murdered. We've seen people that are crying. We've seen babies that have been stamped on and killed in some of these riots that are going on. And I've seen people from other countries. This one of them that we saw the other night. I think we talked about it Monday, Ray, and that is the British.
Yeah.
The British just are the most critical people. They call this man. They call Obama, or not Obama. I think that's where
Same
a
thing.
lot of this is coming from, because he wanted to fundamentally change the United States, and this is still a part of that process. But I see where we have this thing where this guy says, hey, he's the head of the military, isn't he? Court-martial him.
Unfortunately, you can't court-martial him
No.
because he's not a member of the military.
Not a sworn
He's
officer
a
in the military.
commander and false chief over the military. And so because of that, he's not a member of the military, so you can't court-martial him. You also, unfortunately, and I'll say that, you cannot bring him in front of the ICC, the International Criminal Court, because the United States has not ratified that, nor do they recognize the ICC, for obviously good reasons, because these foreign countries would be bringing American presidents up, for having a hangnail. I mean, let's face it. So the only remedy is, an impeachment.
Now, I'm curious about this. So there was a lot of NATO presence there, right? But yet NATO really didn't know what Biden was doing. And it reminded me of what my dad used to say. There's three types of people. There are ones that make things happen, ones that watch things happen, and ones that say,
What happened? I beat you to it.
yes. And isn't that, he's
true.
almost like, I don't know what happened. But if NATO wasn't involved in this decision, where were they? Why are all these countries saying, what the heck happened? Was it only Joe Biden who decided this is what we're going to do, and he didn't tell anybody? Is that a possibility?
That's correct.
It's a possibility, but I would find that hard to believe with your Secretary of State, Blinken, and some of these other folks.
Well,
at
it
the
was
State
strictly the
Department.
United States without commiserating with the others. And
But
ladies
they
and gentlemen,
knew nothing about it.
But they should have been intelligent
that's
enough
right, but
to
I
step
wanna-
up.
I wanna
Like
make
Lloyd
this-
Austin, for instance. He should have been intelligent enough to step up and say, you know what? That's not a smart move. I'm putting my foot down. I'm not letting it happen.
Josh, I'm going to tell you something. Let's talk about Vietnam, and let's talk about, just for a moment, let's talk about the secretaries of defense, okay? We had one, McNamara,
Yes.
and we sent 53,000 Americans to their deaths. How many Vietnamese people died in that war? Destroyed Southeast Asia for many years to come with Agent Orange. And years later, I think it was in the 90s, they were interviewing McNamara about the Vietnam War. And he says, I was never in favor of that war. You're the Secretary of Defense, and you are so gutless that if you disagree with something, you don't step away from it and say, I'll have no part of this. I don't believe in
Right,
it.
exactly.
You still took the money, and you still sent all those Americans to their death and all of those Vietnamese to their death. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say this one more time. I say it every week, and I get my blood pressure's going up right now just talking about it. This is our country. Defend it, guys. The enemy are us. This is an old expression, Josh. The enemy are us. We better do something about this. We can no longer allow our elected officials to play games. And I know there's some discussion as to whether he was elected. Doesn't even matter. He's the one sitting in power. Start doing things. Start calling your representatives. Start calling your senators. I've talked to them this week, and I've told them they need to be the ones that bring the bad news to Biden to step down, or we will remove him from office either by the 25th Amendment or through impeachment.
Now, Josh, you were probably watching the news when Peter Doocy asked Jen Psaki that, you're talking about jobs and all of this stuff, but right now there's a disaster in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Don't you feel that this is more important? She goes, no, I feel that more Americans are worried about jobs.
I don't think so. I think that even Democrats understand that you cannot pin this on Trump. I think that there are so many Democrats and independents that are absolutely disgusted by what has happened. And maybe they're not even saying too much of it. I mean, I've seen some pushback even on CNN and MSNBC, which is shocking to think.
Yeah.
But even they are pushing back against this fraudulent administration and the things that they're saying.
No, it's a
But
disaster.
it's an absolute, it's
Yeah.
1,000 times worse than what happened in Vietnam. 1,000 times worse.
Yeah.
Listen, our music's playing, and that tells us that we've got to take a little break here. But coming up, we're going to talk to Marney Thompson, and she's going to tell us a lot about what's going on in the wide world of politics. And so don't you go away. We'll be right back.